First, let's start with this case. When my fiancé and I got engaged, we knew exactly what we wanted for our wedding. We both love the mountains, so we picked a beautiful venue a few hours away. It wasn't a destination wedding, just a scenic spot we fell in love with. It was important to us to have a wedding that felt special, not just a generic banquet hall in town. Most of our friends and family were excited, but his parents were furious. They claimed it was inconsiderate because they didn't want to travel that far. They live in the same city as us, and they expected the wedding to be held nearby for their convenience. They also started complaining about the cost. They weren't paying for the wedding, but they argued that travel expenses, hotel stays, and taking time off work would be a burden. They told us we were being selfish by choosing a venue that would cost guests extra money. At first, we listened to their concerns. We even checked if we could find a compromise with a venue closer to home, but nothing felt right. We wanted a wedding that reflected us, not just something that fit their budget. When we told them we were sticking with our original choice, they got more aggressive. His mother started calling constantly, trying to guilt-trip us about how we were making things difficult for them. His father sent long messages about how disrespectful it was to ignore the wishes of elders. They acted like our wedding was about them, not us. Then came the ultimatum. They said if we didn't change the venue, they wouldn't come. At that point, we were exhausted from arguing. We told them we'd be sad if they didn't attend, but we weren't changing our plans. We thought they might calm down and reconsider, but instead, they doubled down. They started telling other family members that we were deliberately excluding them. Some relatives tried to convince us to cave in, saying, "It's just one day, and family should come first." But we knew that giving in would set the tone for the rest of our marriage. So we moved forward without them. The wedding day arrived, and it was everything we wanted. The scenery was breathtaking, the ceremony was intimate, and everyone who came had a fantastic time. We didn't let the absence of two bitter people ruin our happiness. And as it turned out, some of our guests, who originally thought the location would be inconvenient, ended up loving the trip. They made a whole weekend out of it, treating it as a mini vacation. After the wedding, my fiancé's parents kept their distance. No calls, no messages, nothing. A few weeks later, they started talking to him again, but they never apologized. Instead, they acted like we had been the ones in the wrong. They even made passive-aggressive comments about how not everyone can afford a luxury wedding. The irony is, we didn't have an extravagant wedding, just one that wasn't tailored to their demands. Now, some people think we should have just given in to keep the peace. Others believe his parents were being controlling and got what they deserved. My fiancé and I don't regret our decision, but there's still tension in the family. So am I the bad person for refusing to move my wedding venue? Let's start judging. You're in the wrong to them, you're not in the wrong overall. From their perspective, they probably assumed the wedding would be nearby. It's understandable that they were upset about unexpected costs. However, this doesn't justify their behavior. You're not in the wrong. They had the right to express concerns, but once they started manipulating and pressuring, they crossed a line. Expecting the couple to sacrifice their dream for convenience is unfair. No one is in the wrong. They likely meant well and wanted to keep the family together. However, their reasoning of, "It's just one day," ignores the fact that giving in would have set a bad precedent. Next up, when my brother and his wife announced they were expecting, I was happy for them. I knew they had been trying for a while, and it was exciting to see them finally start a family. I congratulated them, bought a gift for the baby, and offered to help however I could. A few months later, my sister-in-law told me she wanted to name the baby after me. I was completely caught off guard. It's not that I dislike my name, but the idea of someone naming their child after me felt strange. It's not like we had some deep bond or life-changing moment that would make the name meaningful. We had always been cordial, but we weren't particularly close. At first, I thought she was joking. When I realized she was serious, I politely declined. I told her I didn't feel comfortable with it and that it made me uneasy. I thought that would be the end of it, But she didn't drop the idea. Instead, she started pushing harder. She kept bringing it up at family gatherings, saying it would be a beautiful tribute. It felt like she was trying to pressure me into agreeing, which only made me feel more uncomfortable. Then she started saying that I owed her. I had no idea what she meant by that. I asked her to explain, and she brought up things from the past, small favors, family events I had missed, and moments where she felt I hadn't been supportive enough. It felt like she was trying to guilt-trip me into agreeing. I stood my ground and told her that I didn't want my name used. I didn't think I needed a reason beyond simply not liking the idea. But she refused to let it go. She started acting passive-aggressive, making comments about how I was being ungrateful and how she was trying to honor me. My brother didn't say much, but he clearly didn't want to get involved. I eventually stopped engaging with the conversation altogether. I figured she would move on and choose another name. Fast forward to the birth of the baby. My brother sends a message announcing the name, and sure enough, it's my exact name, first and middle. I stared at the message in disbelief. She had done it anyway, despite my clear discomfort. I didn't know how to react. I decided to just ignore it. I didn't congratulate her on the name choice. I still congratulated them on the baby and sent a gift, but I didn't acknowledge the name at all. A few days later, I got a long message from my sister-in-law. She was furious that I hadn't said anything about the name. She accused me of being rude and ungrateful, saying she had given me an honor and that I was acting like it was nothing. She said I had embarrassed her in front of the family by not reacting the way she expected. I told her that I never wanted this and that she had ignored my wishes. I wasn't going to pretend to be touched by something that I had actively said no to. Now, some family members think I should just let it go and be grateful. Others think she crossed the line by forcing this on me. My brother is staying out of it, as usual. So, am I the bad person for refusing to acknowledge the name? Let's start judging. No one is in the wrong. Initially, it's understandable that she saw it as a tribute, and she had every right to want to do it. You also had every right to feel uncomfortable with it. You're not in the wrong. She completely disregarded your boundaries. This isn't a small thing. She made a permanent decision despite knowing how you felt. No one is in the wrong. They likely see it as a compliment, but they aren't the ones who were pressured and ignored. They don't have to live with the awkwardness of knowing a child was named after them against their wishes. Next up, I've never been the lucky type. I don't gamble, I don't take big risks, and I certainly never expect anything for free. So when I bought a scratch-off ticket on a whim and won $50,000, I was in complete shock. It wasn't life-changing money, but it was enough to make a real difference in my life. The first thing I did was sit down and figure out what I wanted to do with it. After taxes, I'd have around $35,000 left. I decided to pay off some debts, put money aside for emergencies, and maybe take a small vacation. It wasn't like I could retire, but it felt good knowing I had some financial breathing room. I told my immediate family about my win, and most of them were happy for me. My parents congratulated me, my siblings joked about how I should buy them dinner, and that was that. Then my cousin found out. I've never been close with him. He's a few years older than me, and growing up, he never really liked me. He always found ways to make fun of me, whether it was about my hobbies, my clothes, or just the fact that I existed. As adults, we didn't interact much, and the few times we did, he barely acknowledged me. But suddenly, after hearing about my lottery win, he acted like we were long-lost best friends. He sent me a message congratulating me, which was already unusual. Then, without any hesitation, he asked how much I was donating to the family. I was confused. He wasn't struggling financially. He had a job, a nice car, and a decent apartment. He didn't have any medical bills or emergencies, and yet he expected me to hand over a portion of my winnings just because we were related. I politely told him that I wasn't giving out money and that I had already planned what to do with it. That's when he completely lost it. He said I was selfish, that families should help each other, and that I didn't deserve the money anyway because I hadn't worked for it. He acted like I owed him something just because we shared DNA. I ignored him, but he didn't stop. Instead, he took to social media, posting a long rant about how I had come into money but refused to help my own family. He called me greedy and accused me of turning my back on the people who had always been there for me. Except, he had never been there for me. He had ignored me at family gatherings, dismissed me whenever I tried to talk to him, and made it clear for years that he didn't care about me. Now, suddenly, he was acting like we had this deep bond just because he thought he could get something out of it. What he didn't expect was that most people weren't on his side. The comments were brutal. People called him out for being entitled, saying that just because someone wins money doesn't mean they owe it to anyone. Even some of his own friends told him he was being ridiculous. Some family members reached out to me, saying they couldn't believe his behavior. My parents told me to ignore him, and even some of our other cousins messaged me to say they thought he was out of line. Eventually, after getting so much backlash, he deleted the post. Now he refuses to talk to me, which honestly doesn't bother me at all. But part of me wonders, was I wrong for refusing to share the money? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. You won fair and square. There was no reason to expect that money to be shared. No one is in the wrong. He never cared about you before, and the moment money was involved, he changed his tune. That's not family, that's opportunism. You're in the wrong. Publicly shaming someone because they didn't give you free money is peak entitlement. He deserved the backlash. Next up, I live with my roommate Sarah. She's 28, same age as me, and we've been sharing an apartment for almost a year. At first, we got along fine. She seemed fun, outgoing, and confident, while I'm more of a quiet person. I have a full-time office job, the kind where I sit at a desk from 9 in the morning to 5 in the evening, handling emails, meetings, and reports. It's stable, pays well, and I like it. Sarah, on the other hand, makes money by selling content online. She's proud of what she does and talks about it a lot. I don't judge her for it. People can do whatever they want, and I honestly don't care. What does bother me, though, is how she treats me because of it. She constantly mocks my job, calling it boring and pointless. She acts like she's better than me because she doesn't have to wake up early or deal with a boss. Every morning when I get dressed for work, she makes some sarcastic comment about my corporate slave uniform, or jokes about how I should quit and live a little. At first, I brushed it off. It's annoying, but whatever. I figured she was just joking. But then she started doing it in front of other people. When we had friends over, she would laugh about how I waste my life staring at a screen all day. She made jokes about me begging for promotions while she makes more money in one night than I do in a week. Again, I ignored it. I didn't want to start a fight over something petty. Then she took it a step further. One day, she showed up at my workplace. I have no idea why she was even there, but she walked right up to me while I was in the middle of lunch with my coworkers. She loudly said something like, "Wow, I can't believe you actually sit here all day and do this." Then she laughed and made a comment about how sad my life must be. My coworkers gave me weird looks, and I was beyond embarrassed. I tried to brush it off, but I was fuming inside. I wanted to yell at her to leave, but I didn't want to cause a scene in the office. She walked away, laughing, while my coworkers awkwardly changed the subject. That was the last straw. That evening, I came home and confronted her. I told her to stop disrespecting me and my job. I said I never judged her for what she does, so she had no right to make me feel like my career is worthless. She just rolled her eyes and told me to lighten up. That's when I snapped. If she wanted to embarrass me in front of my coworkers, I could do the same. So the next day at work, when someone asked about the woman who had shown up the day before, I told them exactly what she does for a living. I didn't say it in a mean way. I just casually mentioned that she sells explicit content online, which is why she doesn't understand what it's like to work a normal job. Some people laughed, some looked surprised, but no one was particularly shocked. It wasn't a big deal, until she found out. Sarah was furious. She came home that night yelling at me, saying I had humiliated her and ruined her reputation. She claimed that some of my coworkers had looked her up online and now she was getting weird messages. She accused me of violating her privacy, even though she had never made any effort to hide what she does. Now she refuses to talk to me. She acts like I betrayed her, but I don't think I did anything wrong. She had no problem mocking my job in front of my coworkers, so why is it so different when I mention hers? But now I'm starting to wonder, was I wrong for telling the truth? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. She disrespected you first, repeatedly, and even did it at your workplace. She embarrassed herself by acting like that. If she's so proud of her job, why is she ashamed when people find out? Everyone sucks. She was completely out of line for mocking your job, especially at your workplace, but you didn't need to stoop to her level. You could have taken the high road instead of escalating things. You're in the wrong. You deliberately exposed her to get back at her. You knew what you were doing, and now she's dealing with real consequences while you just wanted to make a point.